let me ask about the bird flu issue. It's been a big one in terms of driving inflation. Obviously, the price of eggs is something that everyone has noted, but it's also been behind the death of 130 million chickens, apparently, over the last few years, and spreading to the cattle herd. How much of a problem is it?
It's a big problem, and it's not an easy one to solve. You're seeing the chicken houses when they are infected with bird flu or avian. You're seeing the entirety of that chicken house killed, right? But then you're still having interactions with wild birds that are coming into the chicken houses and then spreading the avian flu. So.
Yeah, it is. It's very troubling. I mean, you think about how it spreads through the air. So it seems like, you say, a hard problem to try to solve. But we've seen the impact on egg prices, on the price of chicken as well. How do you see it filtering through sort of cow prices and meat prices and beef prices?
Well, on the cattle side, the big issue there is we have record low inventory. I mean, we haven't seen the number of cows and beef in this country at this level since 1950s. And the reason is the economics for raising beef cattle in this country just aren't here anymore. So you're seeing generational ranches that are selling off their entirety of their herds, especially while live cattle and feeder cattle prices are at record highs.
Well, that's where I wanted to go. I mean, the farmers that you're in conversation with, that you work with, what do those conversations sound like? What measures can they take?
Yet there's not a lot. I mean, you're seeing input cost across the board, really since 22, rise drastically. And then in conjunction with that, you're seeing beef consumption in the United States rise 20% year over year. So those two things are kind of the perfect formula for drastic increases in beef prices.
I want to pull back here and look at the big picture as well, because you're looking at cattle owners really facing a stark reality when you talk about cattle prices, as you've been saying. But what about the import part of the story here? Is there anything that's happening with kind of the broader way that the tariff discussion is going on in Washington that would help in terms of beef supply in the U.S.?
Yeah, so it's going to be painful short term for the end consumer, right? And when I say short term, I'm talking 2 to 3 years, so not that short. But what has been happening for really since the 1980s and then exponentially over the last couple of years is like I said, is not the economics to raise beef cattle. And there's four companies that control 85% of the protein in the United States, and 2 of those are owned by foreign entities. And the economics are there in other countries because they aren't as regulated.
So the problem is twofold. As I understand, other countries have massive tariffs on our beef and dairy production, and we don't have tariffs on theirs. So we import a lot of beef and dairy products from other countries. And then in terms of the large factory farms in the U.S., there's foreign owners of them, which means fewer independent cattle farmers.
That's correct.
Do you think reciprocal tariffs then by the Trump administration would at least start to address that problem?
I think something needs to be tried and done. The big thing there too is that we don't have a free market, right, for cattle ranchers to sell their beef and make a profit. And so you're selling it. Your only option right now is you're taking it to one of those 4 options to sell your beef cattle, your pork, your chicken. It's all the same. So the incentive is not there to do the things that the consumer wants to see: organic, grass-fed, all the things that make for a healthy product. So you just have 4 buyers with Smithfield and that's not even including Smithfield. You have JBS, Tyson, National Beef, and Cargill.
So let's talk about how you fit in and how you're navigating all these different cross currents. What is your pitch to consumers, your direct to consumer? Why buy specifically from you?
Coming from being an Army Ranger before, I think the thing I missed the most was the purpose, right? I mean, there's no shortage of that. And so, the first few years at Casey Cattle Company, we had this awesome influx when we got named world's best hot dog, but, the purpose was still missing for me, right? Creating the world's best hot dog was awesome.
That wasn't enough for you.
It wasn't enough for me. But, we started to really take it on the chin in 22. Input costs after Russia invaded Ukraine went through the roof for fertilizer, for everything else. And what it led to was Valor Provisions, which is trying to solve these problems for the end consumer to make a healthy, affordable product and also taking care of the protein producer
Now
to make
that's
sure
on
to
the
keep their-
consumer side. You laid out the problem pretty clearly for American farmers. What are some of the success stories that you have working with the farms themselves?
Yeah, so we launched with 3 vendors in November as really proof of concept, and I mean we sold out of memberships in 5 days, and that was with 1 social media post and 1 email. And since then we are paying drastic attention to the consumer on surveys and what do you guys want to see this become and how can we solve your problems, but then we're having direct communication with the actual producer of the protein to make sure we're keeping their doors open and cutting ourselves out as much as possible on the profit side, and we make our money on the lifetime membership. It's a one-time fee.
So what kind of future do you expect for Valor Provisions in terms of sales? What's the growth look like?
It's kind of like holding lightning in a bottle, right? So we've been really careful, and this is kind of the first light of day that we've given it because we want to make sure we get this right.